Hello, I'm Darth Vangoff, and I'm here to continue guiding new players through Guild Wars 1. This is part 2 of a video series. If you haven't seen the first video, please go ahead and do so. This video is going to be focused on guiding characters through the beginnings of the campaigns. So there are 4 campaigns: Prophecies, Factions, and Nightfall, which are standalone campaigns, and Eye of the North, which is not a standalone game. Eye of the North takes a character you already created from one of the standalone games and continues them through higher end content. Each of the 3 standalone campaigns are their own game. You can purchase Prophecies by itself without having to purchase Factions or Nightfall, and you can play it from beginning to end as its own game. Each of the campaigns has its own map, has its own character creation, and has its own beginning and end. Eye of the North takes place on the Prophecies maps in areas you didn't explore. There is a point at each of the 3 individual standalone campaigns at which you're able to cross over to one of the other campaigns. So you could take a Prophecies character and travel to the Factions or Nightfall campaigns. This is called campaign traveling. What I'm going to be discussing here is the part of each of the 3 individual standalone campaigns at which you start from the beginning to the point of crossing over to another campaign. And I might sprinkle a little bit of Eye of the North information in here too. First, allow me to give you advice that's not specific to one individual campaign. First, consider going onto the Guild Wars 1 wiki and typing in Guide to PvE. It will bring up a page that'll give you a little bit of a guide to PvE, but I haven't really looked at it myself and I was just fine not looking at it. And I do not recommend looking at it as a substitute for listening to the rest of this video. The next thing is go to options and just configure the game how you want, because you might not want to play the game as it is by default. You might want to configure it to your liking. So when you're actually controlling your character, the first thing you want to do is type in \bonus. Typing bonus in as an emote, basically. What this will do is, if you have a certain edition of the game, it'll give you bonus items. And hey, why not use the items? You won't actually be able to use all of the items, so just delete any ones you don't want, because if you want them in the future, you could always type in \bonus again just to get the item back. At the very beginning of the game, you want to sell any items you're not using, just to gain some gold. And once you get enough gold to get to a platinum, which is about 1,000 gold, then you want to consider salvaging weapons and armor, assuming you have your bank unlocked, which I'll go into in just a little bit. In your bank, there's a little area for depositing material, and if you look, you'll see many tabs in your bank. It's the tab that's shaped like an axe. You can stack items up to a maximum of 250, and anything over that amount, you either have to go onto the web store, which they just added a new feature where you can purchase a higher amount you can stack your items up to in the upgrade section. And to access the web store, you want to talk to the NPC that's standing right next to the Zoonlight chest, which is your bank. It's the Zoonlight chest. And if you don't do that, if you want more than 250 materials, you're either going to have to use your own inventory on your character or find a slot in your bank to stack items. Items you stack in your bank slots are stackable up to 250. You will see various items that have in the description that it can be salvaged, but you can also salvage items that don't say they can be salvaged. Weapons usually don't say this item can be salvaged, but you can salvage them anyways. So just salvage whatever you need to get materials. The reason you want to do this is to get materials for crafting armor. Now, when you begin the game, you have low-level armor. You do not want to play the rest of the game with that armor on. So when you get to certain areas of the game, you want to upgrade your armor, especially if you feel like you're dying a lot, and this will help you survive. You'll know when you reach the maximum amount of armor when you look at the armor value, and for heavy classes, it'll be 80 for each of the armor slots. For the medium armor classes, it's going to be 70, and for the lower armor classes, it'll be 60. And if any of your armor slots have a value below that, you might want to consider upgrading. When you salvage, you can use expert salvage kits or superior salvage kits to extract specific runes or other upgrades from blue items, purple items, or yellow items. You always have the option of salvaging the item for materials. And if you do so with an expert or superior salvage kit, it might give you a less common, more expensive crafting material. Note that an expert and salvage kit are basically the same thing, except for the icon, the gold cost, and the amount of charges. As far as the wiki says, they each give you an equal chance of getting a higher value item. Each town has a Zoonlight agent. To unlock your bank, speak to the Zoonlight agent to access the bank. So the first time you click on the Zoonlight chest, you cannot access your bank unless you pay a fee, and you can't access your crafting storage unless you pay a fee. When you first unlock your Zoonlight chest, you won't have all your bank tabs unlocked, and you have to go onto the web store to get more bank tabs. And there's one bank tab that has a picture of a birthday present. In order to unlock this anniversary storage, you have to give a proof of legend to a specific NPC during the anniversary event that occurs in April. So every April there's this event that goes on for about a week, and give one of the reward currencies to an NPC in order to unlock that anniversary storage. There are other ways to get upgraded armor and weapons. There are collectible items. When you get a collectible item, you have the option of just selling it for gold or turning it into a specific vendor who will give you rewards for it. Each of these vendors have their own unique items for sale, and they take these collectible items as currencies. You might have to go out in the world and find these vendors. They're not always in a convenient place. There's lots of collectible items. So my suggestion is, if you let a collectible item stack in your inventory a lot, before you sell it, you might want to wiki the item itself just to see if there's a particular vendor that might have an item that you want who will take that collectible item as a currency. And if so, go ahead and turn those items in, if you have enough, to that collector and get the reward. And just to let you know, as a quick warning, be prepared to play inventory wars. Basically, figuring out how to store all your items given your limited amount of space. I've done so many times myself. You will occasionally get items that are called unidentified items. You need an identification kit to see what that item has, and you should always do that before you salvage something. Just so you know, do you want to salvage it for materials? Do you want to sell it? Or do you want to salvage it for a specific rune or upgrade? Now, two of the campaigns, Nightfall and Factions, have a specific currency. One's the Battle Commendation, and one's the Monastery Credit. There's no real reason to save these items beyond stacks of 5, so consider spending them liberally because, there's only a few items that you'll spend them on, and usually it is identification kits and salvage kits. So just buy your salvage kits that way. It'll save you on having to spend gold to get identification kits and salvage kits, and you go through those kits quite frequently, so this will save you on gold. You spend the battle commendations at 2 particular vendors in the Sunspare Great Hall, and each of the 2 merchants sells something different. One sells normal salvage kits plus a bunch of other stuff, and one sells the expert salvage kit. Same thing for the monastery credits, except you go to the Shingji Monastery to go to one of 2 merchants to spend those. Each of the 3 standalone campaigns has its own starting area. For Prophecies, it has an area called Pre-Searing Ascalon. Unlike the other campaigns, it's not its own area that's separated by geography, rather it's separated by chronology. Pre-Searing Ascalon takes place before the events of the rest of the game. So you're in a little self-contained area, and once you reach a certain point, you get a cinematic, and then you jump in time, and you cannot go back to pre-searing Ascalon ever again. So pre-searing Ascalon kind of has its own ecosystem of players, so to speak, and once you leave, you can't go back. For the other two campaigns, you get to a point of being able to cross the campaigns once you finish the end of the starting area, but not so with prophecies. Once you leave pre-searing Ascalon, you're in an area that's kind of like a beginning area. You're in Ascalon, but further ahead in the timeline, and then eventually you'll go to the northern Shiver Peaks, and then you'll eventually get to Kryta and a place called Lion's Arch. Once you reach Lion's Arch, you can leave Prophecies to go to any of the other campaigns, but it's a long way to Lion's Arch. The thing is, you can skip over a lot of the stuff between post-searing Ascalon and Lion's Arch, but once you're trying to go west and reach Lion's Arch, you will find monsters that are higher level than you're able to take on by yourself, most likely. So I do recommend doing missions, only because when you do a mission, it'll drop you off in an area and advance you through the map, and that'll help you get to Lion's Arch. But if you have someone who's a high-level character, they can run you through the area. It's a term, running someone through an area. Basically, if you're in a map and you die and they're a high-level character, they can just keep going, and once they get to the next map, they carry you to the next instance, and you just travel map to map that way until you get to Lion's Arch. One thing is, you don't unlock any heroes solely with the Prophecies campaign, but you can use henchmen to fill your party, and they're competent enough to get you to Lion's Arch when you're doing the missions. Their effectiveness has improved since the launch of the game, in which they were pretty terrible. Once you reach Lion's Arch, you might want to consider going to Nightfall or doing the Eye of the North campaigns, just to unlock some of the heroes. Although, once you reach Lion's Arch, you go out through the gate directly to the west, and you will see a character called MOX, or Mox, who you can unlock as a hero, right outside of Lion's Arch to the west. Once you reach Lion's Arch, you might want to speak to the Tyrian Lore Master to get an item called the Flame Seeker Prophecies, which is a book that you want to have in your inventory before you do the missions in the rest of Prophecies, because if you have that book in your inventory when you go through the rest of Prophecies, you can then turn it in back to the Tyrian Lore Master for a reward. This is called a storybook. Each campaign has one, and as I go through the other campaigns, I will mention these storybooks. When you create a character for the Factions campaign, you start out on an island. And in the very first 10 minutes, you start out in a smaller tutorial area on that island. You can skip the tutorial, but I recommend, if you want to go for map completion, to go through the tutorial so you can explore the whole area. Otherwise, if you skip this tutorial, you can't enter this sub-area except for holiday events. In my humble opinion, this campaign is the one that levels your character up the fastest. This campaign is similar to the others in that it gives you a trial period for taking on a secondary class, but unlike the other campaigns, it's a bit of a chore to unlock a secondary class. So this isn't really the campaign to switch various secondary classes for the sake of unlocking skills, an idea I had mentioned in my previous video. If you want to start out as a necromancer that uses death magic, I recommend this campaign. The reason is, in Prophecies, you get one skill that raises undead minions, and you don't get another one for a long while, and that one's kind of lackluster. The Factions campaign has the best death magic skills for raising minions, in my humble opinion. And this is the campaign with the elite skill, Flesh Golem, that you can acquire pretty early on. This also allows you to unlock more death magic skills earlier than the other campaigns. Once you get to Canaan, the main city, you can go to a skill vendor and quickly unlock the minion skills. The main city here is Canaan, so once you're off Shingji Island, you're not actually there right away. You're in some dock area and you have to travel to Canaan. Canaan is also a whole entire region of Cantha. It takes up about a third of the main continent. So it's not just the city safe zone, it's also a whole region of maps that you fight creatures in. So you're fighting creatures in a city, not just out in the wilderness. You can't unlock heroes specifically with the factions campaign, so once you get to Canaan, you might want to consider traveling to a different campaign to unlock heroes. You might want to consider getting the book Shiro Returns. It's a storybook like the Flameseeker Prophecies was that I mentioned earlier. And you get this book either from a Luxan Bard or a Kurzik Poet. The NPC you turn it into doesn't have to be the one you took it from, but the one you turn it into determines bonus faction points you get for either Kurzik or Luxans. The Nightfall campaign also starts on an island called Istan. This campaign, in my opinion, is the best one to switch around various secondary professions, simply to unlock skills from other professions on your account, an idea that I mentioned in my last video. This campaign requires a little bit of grind to progress, but once you finish the grind, you can simply focus on doing quests and missions. There will be a point in the game where you cannot progress any further without getting to a certain level or obtaining a certain amount of Sunspear rank. You might find this a little bit grindy to get the levels, especially since you're stuck at the lower level maps and the mobs won't give you that much XP. So I recommend grinding the Sunspear rank. To increase your Sunspear rank, when you enter into an explorable area, go to the Resurrection Shrines and you'll see someone standing next to it, a Sunspear Scout. Talk to the Sunspear Scout and they'll give you a bonus for killing enemies. Once you kill a type of enemy that matches the bonus on you, then you'll get bonus Sunspear points. Keep in mind, you can speak to multiple scouts in a single instance to get various bonuses, so you can get Sunspear rank from killing a variety of enemies. I find it quicker to get to the Sunspear rank rather than to get to the level requirement, simply because, like I said, you're stuck at the lower level maps where you don't get a lot of XP from killing mobs. There's a point at which you want to keep collection items because you can turn them into armor collectors for armor. And you might want to wiki each type of collector item to see what armor you'd get from it and see if it's better than what you have. But it's somewhere around the time you reach Black Tide Den or do Jockner diggings. The latter maps within the beginning island is usually the point at which you want to use collector items to get better armor. There's a mission called the Zaishin Elite Mission that you can use to get a hero. You can choose between Acolyte Susuke and Acolyte Jin. One's an Elementalist, one's a Ranger. Once you make your choice, you can't get the other one until you beat the Nightfall campaign. If you can't decide right up front, you can hold off on choosing a hero for later. You don't have to choose right away. The main city here is Commodon. And unlike the other campaigns, you get to this main city right away. So it's not like the other campaigns in which you reach the main city and you're able to cross over to another campaign. Rather, you have to do the quest "The Time is Nigh" and finish that quest to be able to cross over to another campaign. In order to finish that quest, you have to be level 17 or to attain a high enough Sunspear rank, whichever comes first. You'll know when you're able to cross over to another campaign because at that point you will have unlocked a mission outpost called Consulate Docks, which is right outside of Commodon. Anytime between the time you arrive at the Sunspear Great Hall and before you do the Consulate Docks mission, you might want to get the storybook Night Falls from the Sunspear Signalman in the Sunspear Great Hall. You can turn this book into him once you finish that campaign for bonus XP and Sunspear faction. But if you wish to turn the book into a NPC in the Chantry of Secrets, the Chantry of Secrets is a place you unlock later on in the Nightfall campaign, then you can get bonus to Lightbringer points instead of Sunspear points. Depends which one you need more. And I do want to warn you, before you do the Consulate Docks mission, you will temporarily lose one of your heroes, costs. And you will not get costs back until you do a series of quests afterwards. If you wish to not play the game with one of your heroes down, you want to do the Consulate Docks mission, and then you want to do those quests that get costs back right away. Which means when you do the Consulate Docks mission, you might want to set aside a block of time just so you can do everything at one time. Once you reach Lion's Arch on a Prophecies character, or once you reach Canaan on a Factions character, a message will pop up right when you enter the cities, telling you how to get to the other campaigns. One of the interesting things about going to the Eye of the North is that you're able to go to Eye of the North on a Nightfall character even before you're able to cross over to the Factions campaign or the Prophecies campaign. I myself did so on a Nightfall character at about level 11. Each of the main cities has a different quest to get to Eye of the North. In Lion's Arch, you can go do the quest What Lies Beneath. In Canaan, you can do I Feel the Earth Move Under Cantha's Feet. And Commodon has Whole of Istan. Once you get to the Eye of the North, you might want to consider getting the Hero's Handbook from one of several NPCs. The first opportunity will be when you're actually at the area Eye of the North, and you'll see the Vanguard Herald. You don't have to turn this book into the same NPC you got it from, but the NPC you turn it into will determine the faction points you get as a reward. If you're doing Eye of the North on a character below level 20, it'll automatically level you up to 20, but I don't recommend doing so because it puts you in a preset build that just might screw around with how you want to play your character. So if you try putting ranks into an attribute and it doesn't go up above 0, and you're in an Eye of the North map, this is because of how the auto-leveling works in Eye of the North. It simply puts you on a preset build, and I don't like it myself, so it's probably a good idea to wait till level 20 to do Eye of the North content. So that's it for this video. Please keep in mind I will have 3 more videos in this series. I am Darth Vangoff, and I hope I have been of help. Have a good day.